killing characters. Because I was like, is this important? And I was like, Zaid's death is extremely important, but he's not not a... You learn about him vicariously. Like, there's going to be a lot of reference to Zaid, like, through characters talking and stuff like that, right? So it's going to be built up as, like, a vicarious thing. And then you're, like, anticipating this character eventually joining the party, right? Then they die. But then there's also the fact of, we kill every single character that you meet in the first chapter. And those characters play a significant role in the lives of the other characters. And they'll be referenced to continuously once again. So, how good are we at killing our characters? Let's find out. Pull up some notes. Notes on character deaths. Killing a character. Alright. Fucking resets.
Killing people is fun, isn't
True.
It feels great when you pull off a good death scene. People cry, you're a good writer because you made people feel something, which, you know, is hard these days. So I've been studying 19 death scenes by brilliant authors across multiple genres, why they work, and what specific techniques we can learn from them. And I got in an expert.
Hi, I'm Sean Bean.
And I'll even show you the death scene that I wrote. They're gonna hate it. Oh no, it's terrible. Oh my god, what if I'm a failure? And because I don't want you mad at me, spoilers, okay? For all of these things, we're talking character deaths. You've been warned. This type of video takes a lot of time for me to read, study, and write. So thanks to the writing and world building program Campfire for sponsoring the video and helping make it possible. And you know what? You can help the channel and get 20% off. That's right, 20% off with my code down below. And my last video like this on writing character descriptions, gotta be honest, started out really terribly, but once people started commenting, liking, sharing, etc., it literally saved the video. I hate to be that guy, but it really does help. Part 1. The language you use matters. Now, you already know that if the reader is invested in a character, it's gonna hurt when they die, no matter how. Except, get readers invested in your character isn't that helpful advice. That's kind of all of writing, isn't it? But what you focus on and your word choice when describing them dying will create different feelings for the reader. Focusing on visceral bodily descriptors like the snap of bones breaking and specific bodily trauma creates fear and horror in the reader. Unsurprisingly, it's a hallmark of Stephen King's writing.
And then, as he entered the zone of broken glass, he felt her hand close around his left ankle and squeeze his stump excruciatingly. He screamed. One of his elbows came down on a hook of glass and it jabbed up into his arm. He crawled forward anyway, with it sticking out of him like a pushpin. He turned back again, and yes, her face had gone black, a dusky, rotted plum black from which her bleeding eyes bulged wildly. The pressure slackened. For a moment, he could breathe again. Then Annie collapsed on top of him, a mountain of slack flesh, and he couldn't breathe at all.
King's focus is on these clear, instinctual descriptions of injuries and pain that create this claustrophobic feeling with a real threat of harm that we can understand very physically, to the point that we're left with a sigh of relief when it's over. And we can contrast this with how Philip Pullman describes Lee Scoresby's death in His Dark Materials.
Another crack, and this time the bullet went deep somewhere inside, seeking out the center of his life. He thought, it won't find it there. Hester's my center. Lee found it hard to pull the trigger. Everything was hard. Then, she was pressing her little proud, broken self against his face, as close as she could get. And then they died.
The language here talks about pain and death in the abstract, rather than attaching it to visceral bodily descriptors like King, where Pullman uses metaphors and similes to abstract us from the pain of death, focusing instead on the love that he and his daemon Hester shared. King's only poetics only bring us...
I'm just thinking about how this, because like the whole point is you technically don't see his death, right? It's a reenactment basically through like information gained via word of mouth from the people who saw it. And then completely embellished beyond a point of grace for the fact that it's like an entertainment kind of thing. And it's supposed to like show Zayd as this grand, indomitable, like, being, and just like taking everyone down. Like I imagine like how it's set up to make it look like he's taking out like a bunch of people at the same time. Yo, is this a writing reacts? Sharp Spear Games the one. Yes, it is, good sir. We are comparing how my character deaths hold up to the greats. And right now they're talking about the language you use in it. And in this, it's a grander kind of thing for my book because you don't see the character's death. The character's death is reenacted through a play to immortalize the character and bring the main character basically out of his stupor and depression, because the character who died was essentially his son. But you don't you only see the character at the very beginning of the book, and he wants to go on the adventure, and Husai's like, no, you can't come with us, and leaves him behind. And then about a quarter of the way through the book, some shit happens and he fucking dies. And then Husai basically blames himself, and he goes into this depression where he's just trying to go through all of Zayd's work to try and find this mystery that Zayd kept telling him, oh, hey, you know, I found this thing that might be interesting that's really going to rattle up the Adventurers Guild, you know? But Husai never really took him seriously. Well, now he is. And then two other characters who are bards, basically, in order to raise Husai out of this stupor, create a play around this character to immortalize his death, which is also a huge reveal for like the monarch and like the way that he dies, because it's foreshadowed in the very first chapter. I like the reverse character mentality. Nice. That sounds good. Hell yeah, brother. And then of course at the very beginning, in the first chapter, we kill a bunch of fucking characters because it's Husai watching like it's basically a videotape. You want to react to mine? It's only like 11 pages. Yeah, sure, man. Here, I'll pop in the Discord. Oops. You want to join the Discord, and you can post it in public stories. Right here. And, yeah, then I can read it. I'm down for that, brother. Because we are reading Sean's cat version, and we are on chapter 10. It's a good time. So we're hoping somewhere in this video they talk about, you know, killing characters at the beginning of the book to show, like, something significant happening, or a great battle of some kind, like the idea of, like, at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, like in the prologue, the idea of, why can I not remember his fucking name? Isilgar being betrayed by the ring and dying. It's like you don't know anything about Isildur. You only know that he stopped Sauron and took the ring, right? So it's like you don't have a point of reference to be attached to the character. You just know that the character's death is significant to the story. In this case, it is, in my book, because they release a dragon, essentially. Well, they don't release it. They wake it up. It's been asleep for about 600 years, which was the last Beastman War. And that's what initiates the entire beginning of the book. And those characters dying in that way is very, very significant. Especially because one of the characters makes it away. Mine is also a sci-fi. Ooh, nice. We're writing a short story today called Cryogen about a space trucker who uses his, because there isn't like any kind of warp technology or anything like that. It's just normal, like 90% light speed travel. So most things you require cryosleep in order to haul things across the universe, or across the galaxy. And he uses that time for like investing. And the entire economy is based around an AI that uses quantum entangled data to basically collect all of the data on humanity, and it values ideas that humanity holds as a currency, and then the backing of that is like a gold standard. So basically we have like quantum technology, because that's the most important thing, so everyone highly values that. Dang, that sounds like a movie, bro. Hell yeah, I used to do film and stuff, so like script writing, outline writing, plot writing is like second nature to me. It's the getting it the down on paper to actually, like, you know, push it out. That's where I struggle. That's why I'm doing these reacts, trying to test myself and see, like, where are my weaknesses, because my biggest problem is not being able to put it back. Funny thing, my book is in dialogues. Oh, I love that. I study a lot of Quentin Tarantino dialogue, and like how he presents characters and makes his characters feel so real and grounded, even in like something like Planet Terror, where it's like just this out of like just soldiers coming back to fucking torment people because they got fucked over by the government, and they're all fucking grotesque and horrible because of fucking experiments that were basically done to them. My MC is the most confused till now. I mean, you will only understand when you read. Well, I mean, let's find out. I'm just wondering where the hell this is going. Okay, there we go. So we're hoping here it's going to mention, and it kind of does, like a character at the very beginning of a book that dies. But we have a bunch of characters that die at the beginning, and we have like one main character that's a vicariously introduced character. You meet them once, but you don't really engage with them. You only hear them through the other characters and learn about them through the other characters and how the other characters feel about them. So, and then the character dies.
Closer to...
It might take some time. Yeah, man, no worries. Like, I wrote chapter 1 in, like, at the beginning of September. And, yeah, we haven't really done anything with it since. Because I'm just not good enough. I know what it needs to be, and it is not that.
the painful and uncomfortable experience with words like slack flesh. The word choice in The Subtle Knife helps the reader feel sorry.
What do you guess about the next chapter? My guess about the next chapter is that he meets the juror and he becomes Akakia. And then he has to basically like fight against that and like learn what the entire like dark side kind of thing is, maybe. I don't know. I think that would be cool. But of course everyone knows he's going to become a Jokaki. Or maybe something else, you know? I don't know. I'd say it's partially right, but I'm like, I feel like he's, because you've established that he's like the chosen one, it has to be something like he's a Kakia, but he's not quite a Kakia, right? It's like he's somewhere in between, or he's like has the ability to like fight against it, and it's like the first Kakia that becomes like a Jokaki. Like there's so much you could do with that. That's what I love about setting up like the idea of the chosen one, right? Just like my character, nope, he isn't the chosen one. Well, doesn't it say in like the beginning like his birth is like super special? Or am I retarded? I'm probably retarded. But I remember saying something along the lines of like, you know, to the universe it was special, but to his family it was a curse. He is special, but in the era he lives in, he isn't the chosen one. Well, what I meant by the chosen one is the fact that he's like special in some way, right? Like he's not like an ordinary person. Like, my character technically is the chosen one because he is an amalgamation of genetic engineering to create a being that can withstand the pressures of a celestial being's consciousness beyond an instinctual charge, so that she can communicate with the main character. He isn't the strongest, though. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's like the chosen one doesn't necessarily have to be the strongest. It's just like some sort of attribute to them that allows them to, you know, facilitate the narrative. Like, for instance, my character, Husai, has the ability to hear, essentially, Gaia's, like, influence. And it pushes him in certain directions. He doesn't know why, and he doesn't really understand, but he knows that the knowledge that he's gaining and like, the direction he's being pushed and what he's trying to do is greater than himself. I think you might have misunderstood who's the strongest Jokaki till now. I think you might have understood who's the strongest. Oh, it's probably Hirin, right? That's why you introduced him there? That would be my guess. He's like the number one dude.
Sorrow and loss, not uncomfortable or horrified the way King wants us to feel. He could have described the intense agony of having a bullet inside you, but he doesn't.
Consider where the words put the focus in the description of your death scene, and also how abstracted the reader is from the character.
Hirin is going to be pretty strong, though. Yeah. And it's like at the very beginning, there's a significant death, which is Torg's death, because he gets away. But then someone who's not Fafnir, who's not a part of the dungeon, kills him. And it's going to be very important that the doors to the dungeon are open, because the doors to the dungeon can only open from the outside once someone has gone in, and the defenses have been activated and the doors have closed, or the dungeon has been cleared. So it clearly means that you'll learn information about how dungeons work later on, but basically the dungeon is cleared. That's the reason why Torg can escape. I'll just say the next chapter is going to be a very engrossing one. Nice. That's dope. And it gives like this really visceral, purposeful meaning, and it's going to be based around why the strongest is the strongest. Ah, I see. Nice. Yeah. My character is technically the strongest because he's the most intelligent, and because of how magic works, your understanding of the world and your application and imagination is pivotal to magic. So it's very important that the character is extremely intelligent and can understand, like, the idea behind science and how to put science together and learn from the understanding of the real world and extrapolate that to magical essence. Basically, like, they're like, they just have the ability to understand things in a different way than other people. Like, there's different, it's like Husai is like 150 IQ. It's like the octopi, mine is a madman. Nice. I have technically a kind of a mad character in my book, but he's split personality. One's controlled by the evil being and one is controlled by the good being, and he is like the duality of existence. Both sides striving for power. But one is closer and has less control, or less area of control, and the other one is further away and presents more of an overall control. So, you know, and it's like each side of his personality don't remember the other side, and because of how Gaia's, that's legit almost the same. That's crazy. Hell yeah, brother. Same as mine? Hell yeah. Great minds think alike, Sharp. Great minds think alike. Remember that. And the language we use for, like, Torg dying is the dialogue. And it's the go to sleep. Where it's like, the being knows. And it's like a play on the being knowing that consciousness can only be destroyed by a greater end of consciousness. And when all beings die, their consciousness returns to the source. Which in this case would be Gaia, because Gaia was where the seed of consciousness came from for the character. The strongest has both Kakia and Kojaki powers. Yeah, that's what I would have assumed. That there'd be a character like that. It's like the using the enemies of your weapon, the weapons of your enemies, which is kind of like, again, what I do in my book, because the nuclear option of the Monarch is an anti-gravitic weapon called the Diamond Weapon, and they have to gather the Sapphire Weapon, the Emerald Weapon, and the Ruby Weapon, and put them together to make the Diamond Weapon, so they can use it against the Monarch, because it's like their trump card. We have the Monarch's greatest weapon. Yeah, his strongest weapon is his curse. Yeah. I love that kind of idea. And so introducing and killing off like 15 characters, 20 characters in the first chapter, I'm hoping there's another example of a book doing that, just for like, because it's literally like a giant battle, right? And it's like you're seeing it through a video that the main character is watching, and that's how you get the information. Would you want to guess what his weapon could be? His imagination. It's got to be a scythe. It's got to be a scythe, right? Since like Kieran gave an idea of the Jokaki and Kakaki weapons and power could be like. Is it like a scythe with like the scythe being like a tooth, like a ivory scythe? Scythes are my favorite weapons, so scythes are like key what I go to. Just instant off the bat. Is it a scythe? Is it a scythe? Is it a scythe? Please let it be a scythe. It's a scythe, right? Scythe? It's a scythe? It's a scythe? It's a scythe? Yeah, it's a scythe, right? It's a scythe? No, it's something you wouldn't imagine. A gun? Because it's something you wouldn't think of in like a medieval magical setting? But you also said it's sci-fi. I don't know. Is it like a part of his body? It's just the swords. That's what I meant. It's just swords. Kind of part of his past. Wait, is it a frying pan? I'm like, that would be hilarious. It's oh, you're talking about the strongest. I have no idea. But that'd be hilarious if the main character is a frying pan, because that's what he used to kill his dad, and it's what was used to kill his mom. That would be hilarious. It's like he uses it as like a shield and a weapon. That'd be some interesting shit. I have no idea what the strongest would be. I mean, if it's not a sword, it's not a scythe. I think I'm not gonna clown on the MC like that. But it's like, it would be funny, but it'd be like you wouldn't make it like his main power. It would just be one of those things where it facilitates his main power, and it's like, oh well, it's actually like a super powerful. It's like having an item like that in like the lore and world building gives it like some sort of magical ability that's like it's not a weapon in and of itself as in you use it to hit people. It's like the embodiment of like a wand or something like that, or a staff, where it's like, so it's like you know, the essence of where his power comes from, but it's like the connection that he has with it and the strength of his conviction towards the item itself and what it means to him gives it its power. Can reveal some side character I've been writing because it's not that important. No, it's all good, man. Just keep it the writing and keep me in the dark, because I like to be in the dark when it comes to reading like that. Because I want, and the reason is because I want people to be in the dark when they're reading my stuff, so that I can see if they get the connections that I'm putting out there. Like, I want them to think this. Do they wind up thinking this? Because I think that's a really important part of writing, is can I get this across to the reader to get the reader to see what I want without them having any forethought of it, right?
Characters' pain
But
and
that's just me.
suffering. But this is also why you've got to think really carefully about...
Part 2. How you introduce the death.
So,
Yes.
I read British Terabithia when I was like 10, a great age to read a book like that. And,
It's about two kids who bond over an imaginary magical land together. Who would have guessed I'd love it? And the ending is really tight, like a rope that will never snap.
both it and John Green's Looking for Alaska are books that deal with the unfair suddenness of death, with denial and unresolved grief. And they do it in similar ways. So let's look at how they introduce the death.
Grief and
to do
denial
that.
are
He
huge
watched the
because
car go-
Husai doesn't want to believe, like everyone, because of using like comm pearls and stuff and link shells, they have instant communication. After the defeat at Garuda, and the word spreads back to the tree, meaning I've perfectly hidden the strongest in plain sight, and I won't say more. Sounds perfect, Sharp. They go back to the tree, and the monarchs kicked all the adventurers out, and everyone's saying that there's been a casualty. And the casualty happened, like, outside of the guild hall. And everyone knows there's only one person that could have been, which was Zaid. And no one's seen Zaid. And Zaid's not responding to anyone. So... And Husai doesn't believe it until he sees Zaid's body crucified on the doors. I gotta go for lunch, man. Alright, sounds good, Sharp. No worries. Hope to see you again, brother. I'd love to read the rest of your stuff. Enjoy the rest of your day. One with another thinking sesh. Hell yeah. That's what it's all about.
Sharpspear Games
Thank
The1
you
is now
for
following.
the follow.
Thank you for following Sharpspear Games The1. I hope you are
yeah.
enjoying the stream. Less than 4,
Hi,
less than
sweetie.
3 plus
The
1.
patron was just telling me he used to Arch Commander Consummate and thinks he'd be a perfect match for us.
I'm not that interested. Are you smoking?
Who?
You.
Why?
What, why? Are you smoking?
Maybe.
What? When did you start smoking?
1989-ish?
So you have been lying. Now it makes sense. The filled ashtrays, the
Hell yeah,
burning
boy.
wine-scented
Welcome,
hairspray.
welcome, brother.
Yes, I'll say it. Her 3-pack-a-day voice?
How's it going, Valium? How are you today, good sir? We are doing character deaths.
Go out of sight. The joy giggling inside of him so hard that he wouldn't have been surprised if his feet had just taken off from the ground the way they sometimes did in dreams and floated him right over the roof. He was all the way into the kitchen before he realized that something was wrong. His dad's pickup hadn't been outside the door, but he hadn't taken it in until he came into the room and found them all sitting there. His parents and the little girls at the kitchen table, and Ellie and Brenda on the couch. Not eating. There was no food on the table. Not watching TV. It wasn't even turned on. He stood unmoving for a second while they stared at him. Suddenly, his mother let out a great, shuddering sob. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" She said it over and over, her head down on her arms. His father moved to put his arm around her awkwardly, but he didn't take his eyes off Jess. "I told you, he just gone off somewhere," Maybelle said quietly and stubbornly, as though she had repeated it often and no one had believed her. Brenda's pouting voice broke in. "Your girlfriend's dead, and Mama thought you was dead too."
She just kills a kid. Like that. My crush when I was 10, just gone. Dead.
Yup.
I'm fine. Great book.
Firstly, there's no explanation or gradually leaning into the death. It's just, your girlfriend's dead. Very suddenly in the sentence, almost unkindly suddenly. They phrase it in this cold and very factual way. Secondly, they both offer the reader an alternative explanation for why everyone is looking so worried to lure the reader into a false sense of security before revealing the truth. This gives us momentary relief, hope, which then makes the reveal all the more shocking and sharper. Thirdly, they both put it at a point in the narrative structure where the reader has kind of been promised that their character still has stuff to do, and at a point that we don't usually expect this kind of death.
They also both purposefully place the death off screen to work.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like placing Zayd's death off screen and like completely building this character so that you're convinced this character is eventually going to join the party, right? And then it's like, no, they're dead. And then it's the entire breaking of the main character, his fall from grace, and then him being lifted back up by the rest of the characters, the play that immortalizes Zayd, and that one final scene of the one thing that only Zayd and Sid know. The way that Torg died at the end of the video, and the way that the Monarch killed Zayd. Identical. Stuck his blade through his heart and said, shh, go to sleep. Just so beautiful, so perfect, and you'll be like, wait, that's the Monarch. So the Monarch's the bad guy? What the fuck?
Against that assumption that we'll be able to be there to have a proper goodbye, to deprive us of that catharsis, especially because
and the fact that like it's building up to it too, when Husai's coming back, and everyone's trying to like gently come up to Husai and say, Husai, they said there was a casualty. They said someone died outside of the guild hall. So what do you think about that? It's not Zayd. There's no way. The kid's a strong kid, you know. He has a good mind. He knows what to do. He's not stupid. He's kind of naive though, isn't he? He'll be fine. He'll pop up somewhere, you know. He'll come up with that thing. Oh, you thought so, and you know, this was my and he'll have some stupid, huge thing that, you know, we'll have to fucking sit down and listen to. And that's like reference to like Zayd always being like, hey, I found something here you guys might be interested in. Because he technically found out who the Warriors of Light are, but no one knows what the Warriors of Light are except for Husai, and Husai never talked about it, so there was no conjunction between the two. And that's kind of a reason why Husai is like so mad at himself that he never listened to Zayd. He took Zayd for granted. He wouldn't let Zayd on the trip, and now Zayd's gone. But now he knows who did it. That's very important. That's what brings him back up. He's like, okay, well, we have a job to do now.
We have this underlying logic that if a main character dies, then we'll be there to see it. But we aren't.
But death does not wait. It also sets the story up to explore feelings of denial and dread leading up to the reveal as the clues slowly stack up for us, and the guilt of not being there for them after. These may be feelings that you want the reader to have, and these can help you do that. Off-screen deaths can also happen for other reasons too. Suspense, or it's inappropriate for your style or genre or age group, or you want their final moment to be something else perhaps. Maybe a father is on a trip with his son in the Arctic.
Well, there's like the fact of, there's what happened in reality, and then there's the play. Because you never see anything about like Varius or Gluttony interviewing and talking about any of the other. They just say, oh, we tried to be as factual as possible, we'll still like adding the spark of Zayd's grand desire of adventure and his personality into the play, as if he was the one who wrote it. And that really moves Husai. And then that last scene just breaks him. And it's like, okay, well, we have to actually fucking do something now, because I have a fucking goal. I know what I need to do. And then they leave the tree.
And they're running out of food, and to ensure his son survives, he goes out into the cold to die. The important moment here is the goodbye and not the death. The son not seeing the death is even important. In contrast, we can look at how the death of the 10th Doctor from Doctor Who is introduced to us.
Which I have not, and will not get over, because we all damn well know it peaked with him. If you disagree with me, feel free to tell me why you're wrong in the comments.
10's death is introduced very gradually. We can see it coming for a long time, and it's 20 minutes from knowing he will die to dead. It's not a gruesome slog of him bleeding out on the ground either.
The writer didn't want to create the feelings of horror and fear like Stephen King, or shock and loss like Bridge to Terabithia or Looking for Alaska.
He wanted us to feel the sorrow that comes from the inevitability of knowing your death is coming and not being able to stop it, culminating in this final moment.
I don't want to go.
This is a feeling a lot of stories about terminally ill characters try to create in the reader, and in both cases, that time before the death is really important to fostering that feeling.
But sometimes character deaths can be dragged out.
And kind of like, so what happens at the end of the second book, the very, very, very end of everything, is they're fighting the Monarch, and it's supposed to be like Goku versus Frieza on Namek. Like, they're just so fucking powerful, they're literally blowing up the planet. And Gaia and Husai are having an internal conversation while this is going on about Husai saying, I know you have the capability to take over my mind and control this body to its utmost and use the power equivalent to the Monarch. And finally destroy him. And Gaia says, yes, but that'll destroy your consciousness, and that's too much of a burden to bear, because when you die, your consciousness will just come back to me and will still be there. But if I obliterate your consciousness by taking over your form, then you just are gone. And that is a sacrifice that we can't make. Like, that's too great of a sacrifice. And even then, I don't know if I'd be able to defeat the Monarch. Because he's been controlling that body for 10,000 years. I don't know really how to control a third-party physical body. Like, I may just get annihilated anyway. So my plan is just to break out of the shell and, you know, we all come together and use the gravitic weapon to transfer my consciousness into anima. And then, you know, they blow up the planet, everyone dies, and then it becomes the eternal struggle fight of holding anima at bay for all of eternity.
To help the reader come to terms with their...
But you don't feel like the characters are dead because their consciousness lives on inside of Gaia, as long as Gaia wins the fight against anima.
Death. Accept it. Eventually move on with this bittersweet ending.
Gladiator ends with the death of Maximus, and you can see it coming for a long time, with him seeing his family in the afterlife in these flashes. Where Bridge to Terabithia's suddenness feels horrible because there was never any chance to say goodbye or come to terms with it. By the time Maximus actually dies, there's this catharsis for the viewer that he's finally at rest, especially because those last moments are spent killing the antagonist. His whole story is tied up for us. There's also no sudden tonal shift in this moment either, like there are in the stories of Looking for Alaska and Bridge to Terabithia, because the writers wanted the death to feel like a natural passage for the character and this story. We are being told.
Yeah, that's what the death at the end of the book is.
It's not jarring
right?
in any way. It's
not jarring at all.
You as the author
meant
can
to
use
be.
a drawn-out
It's like
death
it could have
scene to
only
make it
ended this
easier
way,
or harder to accept the death by guiding the reader with how the characters are reacting to it. In stories about how to face death for both the reader and character, that time before death is precious.
But as I studied these, I realized that basically all of them use this literary technique to heighten the emotions of their death scenes. They use
Part 3, juxtaposition.
Placing two contrasting things right next to one another to elevate their differences.
Bridge to Terabithia makes a point of describing just how happy Jess is. Things are going great, right before he learns of Leslie's death. And similarly, Looking for Alaska has Miles ecstatic, thinking about how he's just begun to kiss Alaska, this girl of his dreams. All to make that sudden tonal drop more drastic and the pain more sudden, because there's this whiplash against that recently uplifting emotion.
I want to show you how it's used in this really sweet short story called Two Robots at the End of the World, which is about two robots at the end of the world, called Motherboard and Toaster.
A burning tide was washing over the horizon. It glittered with memory, its many arms propping itself up on the mountain tops. 4%. Toaster had seen many images of humans watching the sunrise and sunset. One of them had always rested their head on the shoulder of the other. He had no head, and Motherboard had no shoulder, but he wheeled himself up onto the rock at her level and tipped his optic screen onto her bonnet. It was growing colder. "Remember to keep your solar plates open, Toaster," she said, her audio chip fuzzing out on the last few words. Clinging to the sunrise, Motherboard used what little power she had left to sear the fire and bronze display onto her optics. It was the last thing she would ever see. A sunrise that would stay with her forever. Crystallized, not bent or refracted, every strand captured perfectly. Her optics dipped. "Motherboard?" said Toaster. But he was alone.
And that was written by me, actually. I didn't want to shape your expectations of it by telling you first.
Juxtaposing Motherboard's
Obviously.
death with a beautiful sunrise just serves to emphasize the grim reality of her death in a way that simply describing how horrible and dark and fearful and painful it is now would not. Juxtaposition like this also complicates your prose in a death scene. Beauty in dark times can hold a lot of meaning for characters and the reader, like it does for Toaster here. It's intentionally bittersweet, and it's something Motherboard always wanted to see. But Gladiator, on the other hand, actually uses juxtaposition to help us come to terms with Maximus's death, and let him go. The final scenes flick and contrast between the bloody, dry arena and the beautiful, tranquil fields of the afterlife. The beauty of the next life only makes the bloody reality of this one worse. As the scene goes on, you want him to move on to this beautiful place, until he does, and it feels right.
So the question is, what small thing could you juxtapose the death against in your prose to enhance the emotions or atmosphere that you want your reader to feel? Death scenes mean you're handling a lot of
I'd say for Zaid, it would be the fact that he doesn't expect at all that he's gonna die. He's just like, he's going up against a mob of 400 citizens as an adventurer. He just knocks them all out. He's okay. But then the monarch comes out and says, "You don't defy my motherfucking rule, you piece of shit. Shh, go to sleep." And fucking kills him. Because Zaid wouldn't leave the tree. And the people had already lost faith in the monarch, so he had to basically prove him as a martyr. But Zaid was worried that they would burn down the Adventurers Guild. So he wanted to stand long enough that the monarch would arrive, so that he would hold back and stop the people from destroying the Adventurers Guild. They could just kind of seal it off and work something out and wait until Husai got back. But that doesn't happen. So in the play, it's all about Zaid being like this proud, powerful, exhilarant, like undefeatable god. And then he's just dropped by the one thing that he thinks is his salvation. Just the same as Torg, where Torg runs out and he's like, "Oh my god, there's someone here! Save me!" Kills him. And it's like, everything is exactly the same. And the fact that no one knows that that's what happened except for the reader, Sid, and Husai. So it had to have some basis in reality, because we're contrasting it against an actual event that took place. And we're saying this is the character that did it, and this is the character that we didn't actually like see who it was, because he would morphed into looking like Husai at the time, which has its own purpose later on in the narrative as well, which happens with the Warriors of Light as well, which is another huge reveal.
Complicated emotions. You really want the reader to feel something, and when you want that...
And the greatest part about the play is because, like, using the plays for exposition and stuff like that, because it's all done in first person from Husai, you never get to see inside the mind of another character, right? But because of how plays work, and all, like, internal dialogue in a play is external dialogue, right? So it gives the ability to lay into the inner workings of the character in a outward presenting way that doesn't feel completely out of place and weird, as if a character is speaking out loud to themselves and there's a third party listening in on that conversation. Right? That's why I want plays to be extremely important and a huge part, and it shows, like, basically how bad it is inside of the tree, that it's like people are so bored and just tired of life and there's nothing to do. The stagnance of having essentially no worries and no needs. So the only thing you look for is entertainment. And I kind of base this idea off of like current like upper end society where all of your needs are met and the only problem you have is did my neighbor donate as much money to charity as I did? And it's like, except the inner monologue is suspect depending on who wrote the play. As a source of exposition, it allows the story to turn the play on its end later. Exactly, like I said, you'll hear things that you will think are real, but then they'll be proven to not be real through an event in the story, and you'll be like, oh, so that's actually how this works, and not this, right? Like the idea with illusion magic and Husai. And then there are certain things they do get right, but just in a different way, right? And the the monarch's gonna have this huge monologue in the play, right? Basically, like stating the reasons, and this is gonna be a turning point that I was looking for that needs to turn the entire Adventurers Guild against the monarch. And this speech presented, and this whole thing is propaganda, by the way. This is all propaganda. Meant to bring Husai out of his stupor and to pit all of the Adventurers Guild against the monarch. Not just say, well, he kicked us out of our home, but to say, he's the final boss. He's the big bad. He's the one we need to worry about. He's the one pulling the strings. And that'll, like, and it's like, it's true. Husai is a menace, bruh. No, this isn't Husai doing this. This is Varius and Gluttony. But like I said, it goes to show like the idea of taking a real world event, right? Like think of a movie based on a real world event. I'll give you one. And I didn't know this, but if you haven't seen it, you need to watch it. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Absolutely fucking amazing movie. I thought it was fiction. It kind of is, but it's based off of like an actual team during, I think it was World War II. Very early World War II, before America had joined, so it was like 1941 or 1940. But anyways, this fucking, it's got Henry Cavill in it. Fucking amazing movie. Let me pull it up. So fucking good. No, maybe it was World War One. It seems earlier. Yeah, they definitely have like. Maybe it's World War One. I don't know. But anyways, based on a real thing. But yeah. And the idea of like turning a real event into an entertainment piece. Like I really want to present plays in the way that we present movies of like real life, based off of real life events, right? It's completely embellished, it's complete bullshit, and if you knew the actual events in the real world, you could understand how it's embellished to be entertaining. But you could differentiate between what the facts that were shown about it and the extremes of like the entertainment side, right?
It can be really easy to fall into
Part 4. Melodrama!
This is funny.
But again, that's where the plays work because it's supposed to be melodramatic. It's supposed to be over the top. It's supposed to be engaging, right?
This is not. This funny. This not. Funny not. When you really want the reader to feel something, there's this very real temptation to just ramp up the intensity and displays of emotion, falling to their knees, crying to the heavens, fainting in shock, going, "No!" I have been guilty of this, and chances are so have you, and it's especially tempting when killing a character. We want readers to feel things, but melodrama...
The greatest thing is Husai is like me, he's a talker. He's always talking to himself. He's always talking out loud. He's always got a thought going through his head. So when he sees Zaid's body there, it's just silence. There's nothing. And all of the expression and all of the writing for the next page and a half is the other characters comforting him. But it's just him in absolute, utter shock. And then slowly he's like, no, that can't be Zaid. Because the only way to kill someone inside of the tree is to cut off their head. And just how fucked up his body is. He's like, I have to go see if it's him. And, yeah, his head is lying beside his body. But it takes so long for Husai to have any thought go through his head. It's just the other characters, like, putting their arms on his shoulder. Like, you know, saying, like, sparing words. Because they all knew, right? They all knew. They hadn't seen what it was. But they weren't in denial. Husai was the only one who was in denial. Everyone else knew Zaid was dead. So it's just this solemn moment of all of them coming up to him and either a little speech of some kind, a motion, a gesture based on their personality or something. And then finally it's Husai. And it's that silence and emptiness that I want to portray is the powerful feeling, essentially. Because nothing has shook him, even during the middle of battle and losing at the Battle of Garuda. He was still on point, you know, shot caller, fucking good to go. But this was something else. This was something he couldn't handle. And after that, he's almost a completely different character. Because of his depression.
Lord Emrys 222 is now following.
Lord Emrys
222.
Welcome. Thank you for the follow, good sir.
My sweetie, the patron was just telling me he used to Arch Commander Consummate and thinks he'd be a perfect match for
We
us.
need
Not that
a
interesting.
toe.
Are you smoking?
Who?
You.
Why?
What? Why are you smoking?
Maybe.
What? When did you start smoking?
1989-ish?
So you have been lying. It all makes sense. The filled ashtrays, the burning pine-scented hairspray.
Yes, I'll say it. Her 3-pack-a-day voice.
But yeah, so a lot of the stuff, welcome, how's it going, good sir? A lot of the stuff allows us, like whenever I have a dilemma, and it's a big part of either the story, my writing style, or the idea that I'm trying to get across, all I care about are solutions to that problem. And the biggest problem for this book has been, how do I present the world in a way that, for instance, if there are these two plays, right? Then there are two history plays. But if you put both of these plays beside each other, they completely contradict each other as to what the events of the past are. But only by putting them beside each other would you realize that they were talking about the same event, but from a different perspective, essentially. And that's where the perspective of the Beastmen and the history of the Beastmen conflicts with what people don't know about reality and the past and the old world with the moon. They think the Beastmen have these made-up stories like we think of the Greeks with mythology of, like, the physical effects like weather, the sun, the moon, like moving of the stars and everything was all placed into stories personified as gods to explain the movements of the heavens, essentially. And that's kind of how we want to present it with the plays. And I was like, how do we do something that allows that without it just being, like, seeming like it's ridiculous? And I think plays were the ultimate answer to that. To allow this expression, for things to evolve and change over time, for misinterpretations of the past, and everything is, like, acted out in it. Like, the same play is all, like, completely different when acted by, like, a different troupe, right? And then the tradition of being able to replace the actors with the audience and swapping things around, skipping scenes and stuff like that. There's just this huge dynamic around plays. And the fact that, like, there's not a lot of new plays. Like, people don't really write new stuff. They take the old stuff and
Lord
change it.
222 is now
Oh,
following.
thank you for the
Thank
follow
you for
on
following
Twitch,
Lord
good
and
sir.
222. I
Always
hope you are
appreciate
enjoying
it
the
for
stream
someone to have on both platforms.
Was just telling me
It's
you
a
used to
rarity.
Arch Commander Consummate
Most people
and thinks
either
it'd
have
be a
one or the
perfect
other, but
match
that's
for
why
us.
we
not that
stream on all platforms. So
smoking?
whatever platform you're on,
Why?
that's the platform you can watch. You don't feel like you're,
did you start
you know,
smoking?
you find a really good streamer, but you don't like the platform
So
that they're
you
on.
have been lying.
So, you know,
Now
like,
makes
for instance,
sense
Twitch
that
with
film
ads,
industries,
because
the
Kick
burning
doesn't have
pipes
ads, so you don't need to worry about ads if you
I'll
want to
say
watch
it.
me on
Her
Kick.
three-pack
Same
a
with
day,
YouTube.
boys.
And with the all chat, you can still interact with people. And all the commands are the same on Kick and Twitch and YouTube. Well, some of them are on YouTube. Some of them don't work on YouTube, but no one really talks on YouTube. So it is what it is. But anyways, the idea of having those multiple layers and something to be able to insert to fix a problem that you have, such as for me, how do I turn immense amounts of exposition into an entertaining and interesting spectacle? And I think doing it through plays is just the perfect way to do it, because it's entertaining, it's humorous, each one can have different twists and different turns for how they present it. Like, you could have one that's like a musical and it's all about, you know, the pride of the army winning the battle, and then another one is the same thing, but it's like dark and tense and graphic and, you know, in-depth and monologue-y towards characters, but it's all about their defeat and it's like their struggles in the end kind of idea. So it's like, there's a lot that I have to play with this. So melodrama is huge. On the insectoids, did you ever say what their version of the blush response is? Like, they have a very humanoid face, right? So it's like, not necessarily like the skin changing color, such as the reddening, like the blood flow. It's like, what would... I think it would be more of like, because they have like suckers, like flies, because they don't have mouths, right? So maybe it would be like an inflammation of that. Smokey, welcome, welcome. How's it going? So it's like maybe the upper part of their like sucker thing, like kind of like puffs out a little bit. You know? Maybe they're shell shakes. Who knows? But they're basically like fly heads with insectoid massive compound eyes. Could have something to do with antenna or something too. Like they get embarrassed and their antenna spasm. Only the females have antenna. The males don't. But the females have antenna and that's how you can tell the males apart from the females, because the females use their antenna to communicate with their offspring in the larval state, and the males don't have that. But I'm even debating the fact of having a significantly different male and female. Like, the males are Centaurian in the fact of they have, like, you know, the horse structure body with 4 legs, and maybe females are a lot more lean and sleek and, you know, pristine-ish, and maybe females don't have a shell? I don't know. Like I said, the insectoid race is still something in extreme experimental stage. It needs to be a capital, I'm pretty sure, Smokey. You're pretty bad at this for the amount of times that you do it. I don't try to make it complicated. Okay, I don't know what you're doing wrong. It should work. Do you not have enough points? Are you baiting me? Typically in insects, the females would be larger, and once impregnated, they have a swollen soft belly full of eggs that never seems to run out no matter how long they keep laying. Well, I don't know, Smokey. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be working. Oh! I'm an idiot. I was doing it on Twitch, not Kick. No, it still doesn't work. I swear I didn't disable it. I swear, look, I swear I didn't disable it. Toke time! It's called Toke time! We're both fucking retarded! It's Toke time! It's not Toke, it's Toke time. See, I didn't disable it, we're just fucking retarded. It's always been Toke time! I've never changed it! There was some retard out in the chat there. I don't know, bro. Maybe you've used some sort of different method. I've never changed it. I've never touched it. It's always been the same. Go back in the VODs and watch. That's usually how you do it. One too many hits on this of the snake. Snake Snoke. True. Oh my god. Hey, well at least we're back to our normal reacts. It's an hour and 37 minutes and we're 13 minutes into the video. So I think that's pretty good. No, not really. I just woke up. No weed. Damn, Smokey, that sucks. I'm never out of weed. I plan to never be out of weed my entire life. That's my goal. To just always have weed. I've been doing this for 10 years, guys. You got weed but no paper? See, that's why I got the bong, man. I don't need shit. I just need a lighter, weed, and bong. I couldn't do an exact copy of Genie's line, and smoke alone wouldn't have been as fun. Hell nah. Well, that's your prerogative, Smokey. I'm all about quick and fast, just... Alright. So we solved melodrama. And the fact that, like, Varius and Gluttony are bards, so they're, like, overly, like, like, I am integrating my abstract and poetic nature of writing into their personalities and nature as they talk, so they'll be very, like, personalized to that. Naturally, you need to switch the N and M to know what it means, but that's part of the joke. Yeah, exactly, right? It's like, it's... Yeah, anyways.
Melodrama isn't that great these days. Melodrama strips a scene of subtext.
Which is when there's information not explicitly said, but it plays into the scene.
Wait.
Depth.
Melodrama removes subtext? Okay, you lost me with that one. Anyone got any insight on that? I'm just trying to think here. I guess, again, it's the way you do it, right? Melodrama is over the top, so there is no subtext. Everything is well obvious, even your intended reactions. But we still, like, I'm thinking in the context of the plays, right? This is I'm like, does being melodramatic in the play remove the idea of subtext that I want to portray? I'm trying to think of, like, for instance, like, one of the main plays that I go to is the play that will be about, like, the main one, the moon falling out of the sky. The reason why there is no more moon in the sky, right? It's like the ultimate, and it's like it's like Noah's Ark. It's basically, this play is Noah's Ark. Someone is told that the world is going to be destroyed and the beastmen need to go onto the dragon's backs. And this is like one of the favorites of all of the tree because it's so grand and great. I used to go to the melodrama at the fair every year, and they hold up cards saying things like enter the hero, cheer, or enter the villain, boo. You guys are speaking a whole different language. I understand nothing. Smokey. Yeah, it's like the writing lingo and stuff like that definitely plays a part, but it's like, so for instance, for like those kinds of scenes and stuff like that, the subtext is supposed to be the fact that you know that it's a play, it's an embellishment, and this isn't actually an event that happened. But in reality, it actually is an event. So it's like, I guess the melodrama removes the subtext without, like, further introspection. But it's still there, but it's, I guess, kind of more hidden? Or it's like the idea of, like, a juxtaposition where it's the opposite of what it's trying to portray. So it's like making you think one thing while presenting something else. And you trust the real world more than you trust a reenactment of it. But I'm trying to think of, like, maybe something with Varius or something like that, where he's, like, trying to be over the top about something, and it's like, how do you... I don't know, I think I just fail at this one. I'd have to see this one done in action, and I'm thinking to, like, the villain monologue that I did, right? It's like, what was the subtext for that entire dialogue? The subtext for that entire dialogue was the character wanting the hero to stop him. And him thinking that even though he thought he was right, it was an emotional attachment that he believed he was going too far, and he needed someone to stop him, but the hero died before he could stop the villain. Drama is all about having something gut-wrenching looming in the future and being unsure of the result of whatever it is. Will Jane get her sight back? Tune in next week to find out, only for them to put off the reveal for another week. Find out if dragons are real next time on Dragon Ball Z. Last time on Dragon Ball Z, we were trying to find out if dragons were real. We still haven't found out if dragons are real. So next time on Dragon Ball Z, are dragons real? Because that's kind of the first thing that everyone's asking. It's like the same thing with Husai. He has the inner knowledge of knowing that, yes, it is. Everyone else is in pure speculative mode. Because Fafnir's so large, it's like... It's one thing to see, like, oh, dragon claws in the ground and, like, a bunch of burning forests and stuff. It's another thing when it's, like, literally, like, looks like a fucking meteor crashed on the ground. You're like, what the fuck is this? And no one's ever thought or expected, like, the only reference to the dragons being that big, which is one of the things for the Noah's Ark play, is you're like, no, dragons aren't that big. There's no way they could sustain the entirety of the beastman population on their backs for 150 years while flying around, to the point they had, like, agriculture, food, like everything they needed on the backs of the dragons for 150 years? That's fucking outrageous. But it's actually true. Next time on When Inanimate Objects Attack, a seemingly innocent grocery bag flings itself into a windshield of a minivan, causing a fatal accident where only the driver survived. True, Sean. That's great. I love that. That is strong. That is strong and true, friend. So I guess for instance, let's go back to Zaid's death in Husai. The subtext for the scene when Husai finally sees Zaid's body, when everyone else is coming up to him and doing something, is the fact that, like, this is something that he could not understand. His brain literally, he can't understand that this happened. He can't accept that this happened. This cannot have possibly happened. And he just goes blank. He just doesn't know what to do. And that is so powerful in the fact that that's even never happened to him before. He's never been speechless. He's never been, like...
Morning blunt.
I don't want to say thoughtless, because that's, like, gives a different, like, connotation, but... shell-shocked. Just completely and utterly shell-shocked. Well, all the other characters are like, buddy, yeah, that fucking sucks, bro. Oof. Could have seen that coming. Yeah, that's not so good, is it? I know, brother. I'm sorry, bud. We tried to tell you, we told you not to come, but you brought it on yourself. I'm sorry, man. It just has to happen. Then a carriage bolt shears off of a semi-truck, causing it to T-bone, while a sheared bolt itself punctures the tire of a smart car following too close behind, making its brakes ineffective as it smashed through the trailer. Damn! Going hard, Sean.
In other words, look what's being felt and explored but isn't being said aloud in the scene. It's also just not convincing for characters to be over-dramatic in these ways, which can at worst make it funny in your most emotional moments, but it's also just not that immersive because we're being told how to feel rather than just letting ourselves feel.
Would you tune in? Everyone has already been explained, but I bet you'd still tune in. Yeah, Sean, because it's about the journey, it's not about the destination. I want to know how and why these inanimate objects are acting in this way, right? That's the mystery. That's the hook.
The reality is, humans will often have a lot going on inside their head, even if it doesn't come out in these big displays, physically or vocally.
This simple handshake between John Coffey and Paul Edgecombe as he puts this innocent man to death is a hell of a lot more meaningful to me than... Even though the handshake is very underplayed, restraint and what we don't say are also fantastic indications of emotions and character.
So, are you being melodramatic with your death scene? Well, I think there are 4 main red flags that are easy to look out for.
1. Characters are expressing emotions disproportionate to their death or to how they would usually express themselves, especially physically. It's out of character, but the story treats it as totally authentic. 2. Characters...
Well, how is... Okay, hold on. I'm like, isn't that what I'm doing? But that doesn't seem like a red flag. It's but he's not expressing that, and there's the train wreck rubber neck phenomenon. Can't help but look, even if you don't want to stare. Yeah. Like, it's so awful you can't look away, right? That'd be people, like, staring at, like, the Twin Towers at 9/11. It's like, it's fucking horrible, but you can't look away. I don't know.
Are expressing everything that they're feeling vocally. Stay with me. Oh, it's getting dark. Cliches.
Oh, they mean from the character's perspective of the character dying, not a reaction to the character. So the actual character death, we don't see it. And Zaid's death is just like shock and immediate. The only thing that's like melodramatic about the scene is the monarch's huge spew and, you know, thing about his grand plan and everything like that, which is all bullshit and made up and propaganda, right? To get the adventurers to fight against the monarch. It's all a play to get people back in action and at what they need to do. Which is like a culmination of all of the like super important like themes and vehicles that I've used to say those themes coming together. And I think that's like really powerful.
Often come to mind about this. 3. Characters are describing just how freaking intense an emotion is, rather than what it means for them, or describing how they're reacting. And
yeah,
4,
because the silence is the pure nothing.
Excessive use of metaphors or extended metaphors to describe the feelings.
And cheers to Shailene Bishop, Faye Onyx, and Chris Winkle, who pointed out the last couple of those that I hadn't thought of.
And for a great example, let's return to the instant classic 50 Shades of Grey.
The pain is indescribable, physical, mental, metaphysical. It is everywhere, seeping into the marrow of my bones. Grief. This is grief, and I brought it on myself. Deep down, a nasty, unbidden thought comes from my inner goddess. Her lips contorted in a snarl. The physical pain from the bite of a belt is nothing compared to this devastation.
Okay.
Existential pain or relief or loss after someone's death is a thing, but people don't tend to think of it in these abstract ways, but in how we can't get out of bed, how we feel nothing when we're doing something we would usually love, how we can't focus on damn well anything. I'm not saying using metaphors to describe emotions is melodramatic on its own, it's not. But having them dominate how a character expresses their emotions, especially metaphors that are esoteric and heady and philosophical, can make a death feel like it's not really happening in or affecting reality.
We can immediately contrast.
Actually, a great one would be like, in The Sword of Truth, like Richard and Denna's relationship. How Richard is always on the cusp of death, to the point that he dies and she is a CPR to bring him back to life, and that's like the most pivotal moment of the training of the Mord Sith is and Denna's specialty is the kiss of death and bringing people back.
This to Miles' reaction to Alaska's death in Looking for Alaska.
Gasping, vomiting over and over again, wanting to melt into the brown, crunchy grass, a dull, endless pain in my gut that wouldn't go away even when I knelt on the stingingly frozen tile of the bathroom, dry heaving. Very little is abstract here, and even when it is, it's all grounded in very relatable actions and decisions. This is where you need to listen to beta readers. If they tell you it's melodramatic, it's probably because it's coming across that way. But it also may mean that you haven't built up the important story beats the way that you think, and so readers might just not be convinced of the intensity of these emotions yet. And that's because as authors, it is very easy for us to feel what we think people should be.
And that's why it's very important that I get, that I get Zaid, Smokey, that I get Zaid, the reader, to know who Zaid is, and his relationship, by continuously, every time they're talking about the tree. It's like when we were talking about the hero's journey, about them, like, the Shire is mentioned like 327 times in just the first book. It's like, that's what we want from the tree. Because the tree is paradise to everyone, right? And it's like, even though their view of the tree darkens by their revealing of who the monarch is and how the people actually, like, treat, have, like, contorted towards this fanaticism, essentially. And the tree is that grounding moment that everyone can go back to and look at and say, this is home, this is where we want to be, this is this is what we're striving to protect and maintain and prevent from being twisted and darkened into something that it's not. Look who got it right. There you go, Smokey. Jean-Guy. .53 milligrams per gram of THC. Some good shit. This stuff, $94. Goes between like 94 and like 115. Dispensary? Yep. Right next to my work.
Feeling when we're reading our own writing.
But I also found that the most heart-wrenching deaths for me went even further than this, because they, part 5, leave the character with something unfinished. A goal they haven't reached, a conversation they need to have, a place they need to see, an arc they haven't finished, something important they need to do, and it especially hurts if they're really close to it.
140s.
This does two things.
Here.
One, it's
where
hard
are you
to come
from,
to terms
Smokey?
with the
Because I'm
death when we don't
Canadian,
get
so
the catharsis we feel
you know,
we
our money
deserve
is
when
kind
the
of
subplots and arcs aren't neatly
under,
tied up
you
yet.
know,
And
is
two,
non-dispensary.
it makes it more
UK?
unexpected for the same reasons. We kind of
so that's like
everything
that's
to
like
be
is
tied
that
up
like
before a
pounds,
character can die.
euros?
Jon Snow's death in George R. R. Martin's A Dance with Dragons hit when it came out because Jon still hadn't learned the truth of his parents, beaten the others, or fully earned the loyalty of the
Damn, that's
Night's Watch
fucking.
as leader.
Isn't that like $300?
Captures this feeling quite nicely in Alaska's unexplored relationship with Miles, as he thinks,
"Damn, bro, that's brutal.
I've just begun to kiss her." In Bridge to Terabithia,
Aren't
they
pounds
still
like
have
two?
to save the imaginary kingdom together when she dies. The 10th Doctor's whole thing was that he felt like he could do so much more if he didn't die.
I consistently found that the most painful deaths for me left me with these unresolved feelings of something left unfinished that deprived me of the catharsis I thought the character deserved and I deserved. We talked before about sudden versus expected deaths, and leaving something unfinished can really help capture that sense of the suddenness of death. That death doesn't wait for us to
That's
tie up all of our plot
$258,
lines.
bro.
On the other hand, you could complicate the reader's feelings about a character's death by having them willing to die, but some things are still unfinished.
That's
The
fucking
reader can feel
crazy.
that catharsis, but there's
Yeah,
also the
Canadian.
element of unfairness. Snape kind of fits into this. He dies in the Deathly Hallows knowing he is protecting Harry, and that Harry knows that he was protecting him. But he never gets to see Voldemort's fall, a final revenge for Lily.
Fuck
he
me
always
sideways,
wanted.
yeah.
But at the same time,
Well, what is it,
we kind of
American?
love stories where characters are finished before they die, like in Gladiator. We like fiction with that kind of security.
$186 American, yeah. So it's like, I guess it's not bad. Canadian dollars are bullshit.
It's sad because they're
Fake
dying,
fucking
yeah,
money.
but it's also a happy ending in a twisted way because we.
But I guess
don't
then
have
my
this
weed's only like
unresolved
$50.
tension with them. Especially if they chose to die
an
heroically,
ounce.
sacrificing their life. It's bittersweet. It gives us hope that people can change and death won't get in the way.
I mean, is anything more of a red flag that a character is about to cock it than them going, "Ah, I'm so
Wish
glad that
mine
my
was."
character arc is done. Hey, I can't wait to retire to that farm up north like we always said we would."
See, but that's the biggest thing, is like, Zaid's death isn't just Zaid's death. It's everything that's accumulated to that, to the point of the loss at the Battle of Garuda, the kicking out of the adventurers of the tree. It's like 4 or 5 different defeats all stacking on top of each other, and then the final thing, the one thing that Husai was clinging to, is gone now. So it's like, it just keeps building and building on it, and then it just, he cracks. He just cracks. Anyone would. Anyone would at that point, right? Yeah, Beetlejuice, 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 motherfucker. True. Like a little bit quieter than my voice? How loud is it for you guys? Like it's probably a little bit.
Anyways, I'm gonna go.
It's a little
fight
bit
the bad
quieter
guys
than
now.
this.
I'll see you in a couple of days.
My brain.
He's already dead.
But things don't have to be unexpected to be good, alright, Game of Thrones? But it's a different experience.
Oh, and that's the other thing, is like, his death is completely known to the reader. Like, it's completely stated. Husai's the only one who doesn't believe that Zaid's dead. The reader just wonders how Zaid died. That's another thing, too, is that Husai is the only one who's, like, in denial. The reader's gonna be like, oh, shit, yeah, he left Zaid behind. And according to, like, everything that they've said about this guy is a naive little kid who would never leave the tree. He thinks it's too important. Oh, fuck, of course he's gonna get fucking killed. And then, like, think about how fanatical people were at the second chapter when they saw the Lamia reveal for the first time. You're like, oh, fuck yeah, I can easily see people in the tree fucking him up.
Experience for the reader, and you gotta know what experience you want the reader to have. Do you want them feeling unresolved, accepting it, sad but understanding, or somewhere in between?
And if you want
to like, I don't want you to be shocked at Zaid's death. I want you to be shocked at Husai's reaction to Zaid's death. Of sitting there being like, how much can this character take before he cracks? And that's the straw that broke the camel's back.
Make it even more heartbreaking, and I mean at this point we're neck deep in depression, you can add an element of
Part 6. Injustice or unfairness.
Yep.
They didn't deserve it.
They didn't
It's just
deserve it at
pointless
all.
Suffering.
It was complete
inevitable.
bullshit.
They were just in the wrong
Should have
place
just
at
never
the wrong
happened.
time.
He should have just left the fucking tree.
And it was at this point in writing the script that I realized that the death
Oh
that
shit!
impacted...
There's a current poll. 100% Smokey. How did you do that? I didn't know you could do that. Where did that come from? Valiant Boy, if you're here, you should figure this out. Smokey is definitely the best mod. And everyone voted. Look guys, everyone voted. Smokey is the best mod. The vote is now done. Can we do that on Twitch? Yeah, no worries, Smokey. It's so true. I mean, Valiant Boy's not here. Valiant Boy was the OG, but he's not here, so fuck him, Smokey. You're the OG now. I mean, you are the OG, but didn't I give him mod before I gave you mod? You've just been here longer? Because he was here every day, and he asked, and I just give mod to whoever asks. Yeah.
Most was probably Donna Noble from Doctor Who.
Best mod is your subconscious. No, Sean, that's not true. You don't want what comes from my subconscious.
She does lose all of her memories and the person she has grown to become. It's functionally death of the character we know. What made it so heartbreaking
there was a poll,
was
bro,
that Donna began as someone who saw herself
True,
as
Smokey.
worthless and unremarkable, but had grown over the story in her self-esteem to see herself as capable, someone
The laughs
of
would be
value.
epic, though.
More than anyone, she deserved to keep her experiences of being with the Doctor.
Guys, I'm going to show you what happens when my subconscious comes out, okay? And then you can judge for yourselves whether you want that or not. Got hit by a mandragora or something, man. Like, there's so many monsters in the bestiality that could easily explain, the Moogles or the Kate Sith.
but she got this horrible ending.
And again, you know this has been Doctor Who peaked, this is not up for debate.
Injustice or unfairness creates a different kind of empathy in the reader, but it can also create a resentment or hatred against the character who causes their death in a way that, say, two equally skilled opponents dueling
Not the
out
word
might
you're
not.
looking for!
And that might be valuable to you as a writer. Could be the spark.
You missed it, Smokey? You missed it? Hold on, I'll pull it up again. I'll pull it up again, and don't miss it this time. Mandragora or something, man. Like, there's so many monsters in the bestiality that could easily explain, bestiary! The Moogles or the Kate Sith.
Arc of a vengeance quest or a descent into madness.
And that's because the truth is that death scenes aren't really just about the character that dies, they're about
Part 7. How it affects the people around them.
in
Yep.
both the case of something
True.
being left
That's what it's
unfinished
all-
or
I
injustice
hope
and
it
unfairness,
stays up there.
these have consequences for the remaining characters. Now, one of the pieces that you will usually come across when looking at death scenes is that deaths should have a second purpose in the narrative. And I mostly agree with this.
Unfinished plot threads are a great way to do
Yep.
that because
And
the
that
remaining
it
characters
reveals
have to
the
do-
monarch, and it brings Husai, and it makes Husai pay attention to this character they would never have paid attention to before, and that's how they find the Warriors of Light.
deal with the holes left behind by this character. When Ned Stark died in the Game of Thrones, he had promised to tell Jon his true parentage, and Jon is left grappling with the idea that he might never know. Ned's goal was to protect his family from the Lannisters, and so that job falls to Robb Stark, who in response calls himself the King in the North. It gives narrative weight and meaningful consequences to their death rather than just being a thing that happened. It can even sometimes give catharsis in the long term as characters fill those holes left behind or get justice where the character couldn't. In Pixar's Up, Ellie Fredrickson always wanted to see Paradise Falls, but died before she ever could. So Carl does this by the end of the film, and there's a catharsis to that. Then he finally fulfilled her dream. So you can use unfinished plot threads to control the
Husai's
reader's experience.
that's because Husai wants to fulfill Zaid's dream of finding the strongest adventurers. As you know, I'm not a story writer, I'm not creative, I come to chill, so if you say stuff about story, I'm sorry I have no reply. Yeah, no worries, Smokey, it's all good. Lurking is completely fine if you don't, just waiting for the moment when you can just dip in that really good joke, throw some TTS in there for a very serious moment. It's absolutely perfect. That's what it's all for.
And give the death more purpose and meaning. And that unfairness or injustice can also come from how it affects the characters around them.
Some people also say that you need to know a character really well to care about them dying, but, hot take, I don't think that's really true. A character who we don't know well dying can still mean a lot if we know what that person represents to another character.
Yeah, exactly, right?
In What Remains
Exactly.
of Lysankovi by G.D. Angier, an AI is tasked to be the mother of human children on a new planet. We don't know that much about their first child, Daisy, but we do know what successfully bringing this first child into the world means to the AI.
We see Daisy's dandelion head pop up and down on the waves. She's unconscious, a small speck in a sea of rust and scarlet. We feel the heat of our components and see the warnings emerge in our field of vision. We fight against the
Trackmania
waves,
time
against
woo.
the errors.
True,
They swallow
Smokey.
Daisy, pull her little body under.
That's some
We
good
dive,
shit.
bump into a sharp stone with our knee before our hands grab Daisy's shoulder. We lay her down, stretch her neck, give CPR, and pump air into her lungs. 3 rounds, 3 terrible new memories. Then Daisy convulses, spews out the water she swallowed. Only a little bit of dying today. We cry out, we hug her, whisper her name against her hair, tell her we love her so, so much. Stupid child, we say, but we do not mean it. Daisy shakes and we cry without tears.
Her firstborn, her purpose, everything she hopes to be. And it's unfair. It hurts when she dies later in the story. The point is, a great death scene is made by what surrounds it as well, what we can call the scaffolding of the scene. But we need to bring this back to something a lot of less experienced writers grapple with, because a lot of us just assume that death is the end goal, but the truth is...
Part 8.
there are fates better than death.
Yes.
There are so many things worse than death that can happen to your characters.
Yeah.
I can't just default to it because I think that's the only way to move a story forward or because I want the reader to feel loss.
Yeah.
When I say fate's better than death, I mean better for your story. Death is a tool, but it's not necessarily the most meaningful, most impactful, not even most painful in.
Curious if you ask Grok to make a story, would it be better than yours, you think? Will it be as creative? I do that, Smokey. That is literally what I do. With every story that I write. Because I write the plot outline, and then I give the plot outline and everything to Grok and give it, like, an author. Like, we literally have a command, author, and it'll give us authors, and then we combine 2 different authors, one from Kick and one from Twitch, and we even have, like, an outline prompt of what we tell the AI, so all the stories are, like, built the same way, and then we add little caveats from chat and stuff like that based on what the story is. Instead, if you said make a story, blah blah, bet it be blunt compared to yours. That's why you got to add the little caveats of write in this author's style, you know. Take these things more, like way more towards like these senses, and sprinkle that in between it. So we really manipulate and modify for the prompt, but yeah. We definitely, it can do good. Some of them suck, some of them are really good. It can do that, right, in the style of an author? Yeah, it can mimic their style. John M. All, that would probably blow Grok's processors. You. Who knows?
And you can give a character.
Donna losing her memories is proof enough. It's more meaningful and more painful than simply dying because she loses all of that character growth through no fault of her own. Only you can figure out the most meaningful end to your character's story, but there are some tools that I use to help figure these out.
Personally, I am a big fan of literary symmetry.
For example, let's contrast Ned Stark's death in A Game of Thrones with Iroh's survival in The Last Airbender. Ned Stark's death is not literary symmetry, but it was perhaps the most meaningful way to end his story. It wove into the underlying Machiavellian philosophy of the series that traditionally heroic traits are no guarantees of success, which is why Varys explains to Ned, "It was not the wine that killed the king, it was your mercy." His mercy, his virtue in the end gets him killed. And he's the perfect character to establish that anyone in this story can die. In contrast, Iroh was once a warmongering nationalist who laid siege to Ba Sing Se.
Game of Thrones is so good, yeah.
Now, he could have died saving Zuko, and that would have been meaningful in its own way. But the writers chose a kind of literary symmetry by having his story culminate in him saving Ba Sing Se from the Fire Nation instead, going from warmonger to peacekeeper. There's a literary symmetry here that gives his arc a sense of completeness, that it's come full circle.
And literary symmetry is comically common with villain deaths.
I mean, Harry survived Voldemort in the first book because of his mother's love.
She writes the Earth's Children series. There's so much real-world research she does before writing her stories. They're as realistic as possible for the time of the era of the Ice Age, except when they do anything spiritual. Then she breaks the fourth wall a few times, but it's a hallucination, so it's all good. I love that shit.
Loving, willing sacrifice for him. And then in the 7th book, he's suddenly shocked that everyone is protected from Voldemort because Harry's loving, willing sacrifice for his friends.
You can draw a lot of tension from things that aren't the threat of death. So if you're looking for another, more meaningful end to a character, look at their fears, their weaknesses, an end that would contrast with their arc across the story. And this is especially relevant for characters that you and the reader know will not die. You know the sort I'm talking about.
Nobody thinks the Doctor will ever permanently die. Companions, sure, they're a dime a dozen.
Yeah, and the idea of like, and even at the end of the book, like Zayd's gonna be there at the end of the book. And it's gonna be like, the reason why Gaia can't sacrifice the consciousness of Husai, it isn't for her. It's for everyone else. Because everyone else would be together and Husai would be gone. And then everyone would blame her because she had destroyed Husai's consciousness. So, see how, like, I can just add something in that just completely fits perfectly because it's an expansion of what already exists. It's just maybe more in a subtext, and that's bringing it out into reality for someone to actually, like, putting a magnifying glass on it to point it out, right?
These days. But for him, it's...
So at the end of the book, like, it'll be like, Husai puts his arm on Gaia's shoulder and Gaia looks over, and then Husai feels an arm on his shoulder and he looks over and he sees Zaid. And then they both smile at each other, and then that's the end of the book. They charge into battle against Anima.
It's just not on the cards. So the high points of the show for me have always been when they threaten him with fates worse than death. Losing his memories, his personality, losing the people around him, losing his morality. These all take account of his deepest struggles.
And that's kind of like what's left of the partitioned part of the Viceroy's brain is he wants to experience all of those things, but because he's controlled by Anima and he's only barely being held together by Gaia, and the like proximity to Husai is basically the connection that allows her to overthrow Anima's control until Anima fully focuses on it and drops his control of the monarch in those moments of like the planning when his personality shifts to the dark personality.
And weaknesses and turn them on their head. Whether you want a character to meet a painful or good ending, think about literary symmetry and fates that interact with their weaknesses, strengths, their arc, and fears. Redemption arcs sometimes come up here with the now good guy sacrificing his life, and personally, I don't like that. I don't think it's really redemption to just die. Oh wow, man, look at all those bad things I did, I'm cocking it now. When it's much more meaningful to face up to the wrongs of your past.
True.
But also, don't go too hard on yourself with any of this. Don't feel like you have to obey all of these esoteric writing rules. If you feel like your character's story naturally ends in death, or you just want to write their story that way, do it. It's your story.
See, but that's the thing, is Zaid's death started out as I want to kill this character. And now it's turned into the most singular, pivotal moment in the story that's allowing me to bring all of these plot points together and reveal and have the complete fall of the character. It's like, it's just so layered and great. And it's like, I originally was just like, I just want to kind of kill this character because I want a character to die. And then everything just kind of fell into place around it.
Don't listen to anyone else and you'll still make people cry.
True.
Have fun with it. I try to only take sponsors that I really do feel you guys might genuinely find helpful.
And Campfire is a really good writing and world building program to...
Okay, so I was going to do a normal sponsor section, but then I put out a tweet saying, hey, you know how when you write a name or a place or a magic system term in your book and it comes up with that little red squiggly line that says, hey, this is spelled incorrectly and you can't get rid of it and it keeps happening, you know, it gets really annoying. So I said, hey, wouldn't it be great if when you go add to dictionary, you can add your own definition and have like a glossary for all the terms you've added for that document and transplant it into other documents, like other chapters as well. And I tagged Campfire saying, hey, can you do this? And they said, mission accepted. Not even kidding, 16 hours flat that added that to Campfire. That is the sort of people that we're dealing with. Not even to say all of the other features the Campfire already has, pages for writing and world building and places and magic systems, etc. I was just really impressed that they did that. So yeah, that is the sort of product that people at Campfire are making. They listen and they've done it well. So when I say that they're good, I mean it. They really do deserve the success that they're having and I can get totally behind it.
And you get 20% off with my code and you only pay what you want for what you're going to use. I really like that. And so does Momo. Do you doubt, Momo? But let's bring all of this together in a thick, milky
I'm more of a
Firstly,
organize
visceral
it
bodily
myself kind of
descriptors can
person.
create fear and horror in a death scene, making the reader uncomfortable, while more abstract language allows us to focus on other feelings like sorrow and love rather than very real
Such a
pain.
good-
Secondly, suddenly introduce...
If you haven't seen his Dark Materials, you should watch his Dark Materials. It's so fucking good, man. It's basically the Golden Compass redone. And, like, fully does, like, the entire thing. It's so fucking good.
Seeing death or placing it off screen helps the reader explore the unfair abruptness of death and feelings of unresolved grief. Alternative explanations can lure the reader into a false sense of security and make that reveal more impactful. Thirdly, longer death scenes can foster an exploration of powerlessness and the inevitability of death, but they can also be used to guide the reader to accepting this bittersweet ending. Fourthly,
That happens at the end of the book.
juxtaposition can add depth to your prose and make a character's death easier or harder to accept, especially if it creates tonal
Juxtaposition
whiplash.
between the characters that
Fifthly,
accept it and the characters that
melodrama
don't.
strips a scene of subtext. It's usually less convincing and immersive, and it's often the result of trying to get a reader to feel something by ramping up the intensity of the emotions. It's often marked by disproportionate reactions, cliches, excessive metaphors, and describing feelings in the abstract. Sixthly, leaving the characters with something unfinished or making the death unjust or unfair is a great way to make a death more unexpected and deprive the reader
I feel
of
it's
that
homecoming
catharsis.
smoky.
Unfinished
That's
plot threads are also a
true.
great way to give the death a second purpose. And seventhly, consider what might be the most meaningful fate for your character, taking account of their arc, their fears, their strengths, and literary symmetry. This was a lot of fun. If you want to, share a death scene you wrote down in the comments below. I'd love to read them. Stay nerdy, guys, and I will see you in the future.
True.